When you grew up like a deadhead music guy and you get sober when you're 33, obviously you're an alcoholic. Were drugs a thing in your growing up? Like what was that like?
Drugs were instant. The day I first really got drunk, I got stoned too. The first couple of times
How long are you a daily acid taker?
Yeah, I'd say, I know the very first day I took acid was the very first day that Martin Luther King's birthday was recognized as a day off of school.
What's the experience of 6 days in a row and taking 6 doses on the sixth day or whatever? Like, what was that like? You found out you had cancer of the appendix and they said it was treatable. How scary was that?
That was scary.
Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
Now, Tim, do you want to explain the whole to-do that's happening today with all these people that are coming to see you?
Sure. Well, again, as Dave said, my name's Tim Kelly. I'm a very grateful alcoholic. I'm sober since September 30th, 2002. About 4 years ago, I was diagnosed with cancer. It was appendix cancer. Very, very rare strain of cancer that's deadly, but it's actually curable. And I went through 9 months of chemo, major surgery where they opened me up and they took out 1.5 feet of my colon, my appendix, my gallbladder, my spleen, a thing called uramentum, some of my peritoneum. Apparently we're like IKEA furniture, It works, but when you got it all built, there's like 10 pieces left over, but you apparently don't need them. I guess our bodies are something like that. But I was doing great, and I was in remission for about a year. And then all of a sudden, digestive problems hit, and we were fighting it for the last year, trying to figure out what's up. And then last December, discovered cancer. I don't know necessarily if it was back or a new one, but it's now gastric cancer. Gastric cancer is not curable, and it's really terminal. When I talked to my doctor in December, was diagnosed, he told me recently he didn't expect to be talking to me in February, let alone June or July. So these last 6 or 7 months have been trial and error of a lot of different chemo, but I used to be 190 pounds. I'm 102 right now. My body just can't take it. And so that's kind of the health background. The music background was during remission. My wife knew a friend who she knew had a friend who was friends with Anders. And I had Anders Osborne. And I had tickets to Anders at Space, 4 tickets. And so Amy's my wife, the rock of my life. She kind of connived a little situation, got me to bring Matt and his wife as the extras. Matt talked to Jimmy Cohen, which I'm pretty sure you know Jimmy, and Jimmy talked with Anders. And so about the 5th song in, Anders introduced I'm Ready, which is my favorite song. And he played, and he had this beautiful local violinist, Ann Harris, up on stage with him. And he said, this next song is dedicated to Tim and Amy. And I was blown away. So then I found out the gig, what was going on. And after the show, Jimmy introduced me to Anders. Went backstage, we talked for a bit. And Anders said, you need to join this little AA meeting we have. It's not officially AA. It's not in the books. It's not registered. And it's actually more a spiritual meeting. It meets every Tuesday and Friday. I'm coming up on 22 years of sobriety. I've never experienced a meeting, a group of men, it's a men meeting, a stag meeting, that are so raw, that are so honest, that are so caring. It's taken my sobriety to a whole other level. And I felt I had a pretty solid sobriety. You'll hear from other people. I tend to blow my own horn a little. I'm hanging out with all these famous musicians. I'm like, I'm famous AA. That's the difference. But I got into this meeting and it's grown from there.
And who's coming today? And are they playing? What are they? They're playing a concert. Like, what's the deal?
Yeah. So a few months ago, Eric Simons, who's in our program, he's I'm not sure of all the etiquette on who I can say names and shit.
You could say first names. It's fine.
Okay. Eric is he kind of started organizing this with Anders, and they decided to have a thing called Tim's Fest. And of this group, there's about 40 to 50 of us, 30 regulars. Of them, there's probably 15 musicians. Then there's some producers, there's some roadies, and then there's just a bunch of diehard music fans like us. So who's flying in today is Anders is flying in, Ivan is flying in, Eric S., who was the Neville's guitarist for most of the 90s. Neil F. is coming in. Joe.
Dopey superstar Jason R.
Jason Ricci is going to be. Jason R. is
Dopey superstar also Mike D.
Mike
on the
D.
percussion.
Unfortunately is not.
No way. That's too
bad. It's a bummer. Ricky Lee has a tour going on that he can't make it. See who else is playing. Some other guys you wouldn't know. Gabe G, young guy, plays blues guitarist. We've got
Bucati's coming.
Bucati's coming. Joe Giulini, Sean G, another percussionist. So there's a good 10 to 12 musicians, and we got it broken up into 3 or 4 different sets. It's going to start at 1:30, and it's going to end at around 8. And there should be, my family's coming and my wife's family. So that's about 18 of us. We think there's going to be about 60 altogether. And it is one of the kindest things that's ever been done for me. I'm a music fanatic. I saw, Jerry in the Day close to 100 times.
Wow.
I've probably seen 1,000 reincarnations of the Dead, whether it's Further, The Dead, Dead & Co., Bob Weir and Wolf Brothers. Huge Fish fan. My friend was David School's sound guy for Panic, so I got to meet all the Panic guys. Done a big Panic run. Love Goose. I don't know if that'll get me kicked off the podcast or not.
No.
As a big Twiddle fan, was bummed to see them break up. But I love music. Just love it.
Me too. I was so excited to come. Bucati is going to be our dopey roving reporter at Tim Fest today.
Beautiful.
So we're going to get a lot of Tim love through John. And I mean, that was going to be my role, but it is what it is. And John is a beloved character in the doposphere. So that'll be sweet. You want to hear something funny though?
Yes.
I was at my beach meeting. I go to a beach meeting, 4 or 5 days a week, at 8 a.m. And I'm leaving the beach and I'm talking to this totally nuts, but very cool, alcoholic in recovery named Johnny. And he's real New York. And he's like, "Where you going tomorrow?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm going to Chicago. There's this really deep AA guy who they're doing a party for him. He's dying." And he goes, "Hold down 1 second." He takes out his phone. He calls some dude in Chicago. He goes, "Do you know who this guy Tim Kelly is?" And the guy says, "Yeah, I know."
No shit.
He knew you. And the guy, you want me to tell you his name?
Yeah.
I think he's a gay guy named Billy, I think. Does that ring a bell?
Sure.
You know who I'm talking about?
I know a few gay Billies, so
I think his real name is it's an interesting sounding name. His real name, it's he's Greek.
Yes. Oh, Vesuvius.
Vesuvius, exactly.
No kidding.
So the dude at my meeting who calls himself Johnny Mac calls Vesuvius to make sure that you exist.
That is awesome. I'm telling you, ego to the side. I'm a little famous. I don't know if you know, I'm a little popular in Chicago.
How did that happen?
I think I got a big mouth. I walked into my first meeting and I've never looked back. A woman named Dolores hugged me Scared the shit out of me. She came storming over to me. Is this your first meeting ever in life? And I'm like, what's anonymous about this program? And she's like, I'm like, I was so scared. I said, yeah. And she's like, I want something from you. And I'm like, well, what do you want? Do I got to shave my head and sell flowers on the corner of Lake and Michigan on Tuesdays at 3 and give you all my money? And
You were hoping she was going to say that.
you know,
like, I'm down. I'll do
that's
it.
a lot easier.
Yeah.
And she's like, no, I just want a hug. And she changed my life, man. Changed
How
my
old were
life.
you?
I was 33. I'd almost killed my 5-year-old and 2-year-old in a car accident on the way to Great America at 11 in the morning. Drunk as a skunk, had not stopped drinking till I passed out at 5 in the morning. The 5-year-old and 2-year-old woke me up. I got them breakfast, drank more vodka and cranberries, smoked more weed, got an ounce of weed because I was going to sell it after the show, after Great America, because, you know, that's what dads of the year do. And put him in the car, and we took off, and we went to get my mom because I had an extra ticket. My company would rent Great America once a year, which was great. It was empty. So I went to go get my mom, and she's like, Tim, we need to get you help. You're out of control. You know, you need help. You're drunk. You can't put those kids in the car with you. This is happening all the time. And I said, fuck Grammy. We don't need her. Let's go. And we got in the car, and as we were driving, I was going 90. I smashed into a car in front of me. That car spun around and hit me. I spun around. We miraculously ended up facing the right direction. I went to change information with her. She wanted to wait for the cops, and I just took off. Hood crashed, steam coming out of the car. Drove until my car died. Got the kids out of the car. We walked across a industrial area till I found a janitor. Got in a cab, got home, called a cab, and then called the tow company. Tow company said, you know, you're getting hit and run. Like, nah, it was a misunderstanding. Cops didn't want to talk to me till the next shift, the next day. Didn't deal with the cops. My wife came home. My parents showed up. He's a drunk. He's an asshole. He's an addict. My parents are like, he just needs help. She's like, I just need him out of my house. I'm like, fuck all you. I got a house. I got a job. I got 2 cars. One's impounded, but we'll get it. You know, we'll get it back.
It'll get fixed.
Yeah, it's no deal. As long as they don't find the ounce that's in the kid's seat, you know, in the back. And, you know, the next day I dealt with the cops. Gave me a whole lot of tickets, but no DUI. Following day I went to work. Again, I had called in sick the day before. Went into work and said, I got to go see my doctor. I'd done it a number of times. She's like, just go get help. I went to my doctor, and he's like, Tim, we've done this circle. He goes, I don't think there's anything wrong with you that I can fix. And this is really important. He said, I think you're an alcoholic. I've been told that before, but it didn't register really. He's like, I think you drink too much, you do too many drugs, and what you have, I can't help you with. Have you ever thought of going to AA? And I said, I don't want to go to AA. He said, well, what you have, I heard they can help you. I can't. I can give you a prescription, but I don't think that's your problem. You know, thank God for the doctor's opinion. This is a man that actually believed he was born to fix people, and he knew he couldn't fix me. Next day I called AA, went to look for they gave me, I said, is there any meetings in the Loop at lunchtime? He laughed at me because I'm down in the Loop. And he told me a bunch of places. He said, or you could come here. And I went here, was 200 North Michigan. 200 North Michigan should be the corner building, you know, but it wasn't. It was like the 5th building in. I'm checking out. There's a luggage store that's always going out of business. It's got to be the biggest front for whatever Chicago Mafia is around. There was a Starbucks. There was a Rico Benny's. There's all these places. And at this point, I couldn't find it. And I'm like, I'm giving up. And the dude who talked to me on the phone, he told me the time of the meeting 10 minutes earlier than it was supposed to. So I'm still looking around. And I finally go into this one last building. I'm like, hey, are you 200 North Michigan? And the guy goes, yeah, are you one of Bill's friends? I'm like, who the fuck's Bill? And he goes, oh, just sign here. I'm like, I'm not signing shit. And he goes, just go up to the 5th floor. I went up to the 5th floor, and this 180-year-old little black woman's like, "Hey, sugar, is this your first time here? You want to come into the meeting?" And I'm like, "Who the hell? What circus is this?" And she's like, "Just go into that room." And I went in the room, and that's when I met Dolores. And I felt the weight of the world off my shoulders. I never, ever felt that way before.
And like did your dad say you were an alcoholic first or your doctor first?
Neither. I mean, not the first person who called me an alcoholic was probably me, but to myself without letting anybody else know. But then I was told on a daily basis, my wife, my first wife, who God rest her, not God rest her soul, she's alive and kicking. Thankfully, too, because I love her. She could tell me, she'll say she loves me. That she spent 3 days ago, next to my bed, just hugging and crying and talking about all our wonderful times. We've raised 2 amazing young children who are 27 and 24. The 27 yesterday celebrated 5 years of sobriety.
Wow.
And he just finished his 2nd year in Northwestern Law School, straight A's on the dean's list, and accepted a job offer from Mason Gray, big firm. And my daughter just finished her 1st year at vet school at U of I. So we did something right.
I'm sure you did a ton of things right. When you grew up, like, because you're like a deadhead music guy and you get sober when you're 33, obviously you're an alcoholic. Were drugs a thing in your growing up? Like what was that like?
Drugs were instant. The day I first really got drunk, I got stoned too. You know, the first couple of times you kind of screw around, you don't really seem to get as high. Man, the first time I got high, I was high.
How old were you?
I was 13, I think. It was the summer between freshman and sophomore year, and my birthday's October 28th. So I was pushed ahead, so I was very young for my grade. So I think I was 13, because it was the end of that summer. And before long, within a year or so, you know, I was doing coke and doing acid. Acid and weed were my big drugs. I never really got into coke, but I kid around. I did it 500-600 times.
Right.
You know? But it wasn't the thing that caught me. You know, I was a daily weed smoker. I was a daily acid taker a lot of the time, and I drank nonstop. That was going into sophomore year. By September, October, I was down in 2, 3, 4 old style cans or slugging vodka before getting picked up to go to high school.
Were you a hippie at that point?
Yeah, I'd say what you'd call a hippie in 1984.
Did you fall in love with, was it the Grateful Dead that caught you first?
No, Zeppelin.
Okay. And
Big Zeppelin.
Before we even get into that, how long are you a daily acid taker?
Yeah, I'd say, I know the very first day I took acid was the very first day that Martin Luther King's birthday was recognized as a day off of school. So I took that hit of acid, was off school, and from that day on, once I went away to college, I was taking a hit of acid. You know, I would go 3, 4, 5 days straight. When I would follow the Dead around, you know, I'd watch 7 shows in 9 days, and I'd take acid at all of them. So when I say daily acid, that's kind of what I mean.
Still long trips.
Oh, yeah. And every day taking another one. So one wasn't enough on day 2. You know, by day 5, I'm taking 6.
I don't think I ever did consecutive days of dosing. Like at the end of, I wound up becoming a horrible heroin addict. But when I would take acid and the next day I'd need to rest. Like, what is it? What's the experience of 6 days in a row and taking 6 doses on the 6th day or whatever? Like, what was that like?
You know what? It was ridiculous because I feel like by day 3, it's not doing anything. You know, but you're on your 5th Dead show. You can't go see the Dead without being on acid. So you take it. You know, once in a while, maybe something would shoot through. But really, it was always, that's why I have my best memories were always the first or second day of the run. And I remember the third day of the run, I used to fall asleep. I'd nod out halfway through a lot of the shows. I slept at Alpine in the chairs in the pavilion during my fifth show. I remember waking up during Terrapin, just exhausted, just exhausted.
How long would you travel following the Dead?
Longest I went was New Year's shows in California in '89. Second longest would have been the famous Knickerbocker Arena shows, Dozing at the Nick. Besides that, it was all local. It'd be Alpine Valley was the big thing, Deer Creek.
So it was never extended periods.
No, a week, maybe a week and a half.
That's still pretty extended, though.
Yeah, it was for me. It was for a guy who had a full-time job, suburban kid, no trust fund. I was pinching together pennies to make it to these shows. I wasn't selling grilled cheese or anything, but I would, I'd get my tickets and somehow survive.
First time I took acid was 1991 at the Grateful Dead at Madison Square Garden. And I didn't even like the Dead. I was convinced I wasn't interested, and I was snobby and the Dead weren't cool, and I didn't even notice they were playing. I was just tripping, wandering around
That's
Square
awesome.
Garden with my friend, and it was a few years before I got into it. I think I got into it when they put out Two from the Vault or something. When I heard Two from the Vault, my life changed. And then I got really into it. But I was also in school upstate and stuff. How much do you think Dead culture and all that stuff informed your life?
Immensely. I always say that AA, the Grateful Dead, and yoga have influenced my life more than anything besides having children.
What'd you get into first? Yoga or the Dead?
I got into the Dead. Yoga was a funny thing. I was on Jam Cruise, and I went on an excursion of snorkeling, and I got horrendously seasick. They had to carry me off the boat. I just couldn't. I was so sick. And we tried a lot of things. I slept, all this stuff. Nothing worked. In the morning, I went to see maybe some greasy breakfast. Went and got some breakfast. Didn't work. Walking out, there's 80 people doing yoga out on the main deck. And I said, well, what the hell? And I did it. And oh my God, the nausea went away. The good feeling happened. And I was hooked.
You were sober then?
Yeah. Oh yeah. This is 2016. And from 2016 until the pandemic, I was a daily yoga guy. During the pandemic, I didn't get into the video yoga for a while, but then I got from my wife. Funny little quick side story is me and my wife did IVF. She got pregnant. The pandemic hit. We went through this whole thing in the pandemic, and kids were born. 4 weeks later, I was diagnosed with cancer.
Oh my God.
So, after a year of treatment, my wife was still worried, working on the baby fat and getting in condition. She wasn't very happy with her state. And I bought her a Peloton for Christmas. And that was life-changing. And I started doing the Peloton. And I loved the bike and everything, but I really loved the yoga. Kira Michelle, huge shout out to Kira Michelle. She's one of the yoga instructors who speaks our language, even though she's not one of us. And she is just phenomenal. And I got hooked. And I went there was a point where I did 120 straight days of yoga on Peloton because they keep the streaks going. So yoga it helped me breathe, helped me relax, helped me get into some of the best shape I'd ever been in.
Yeah, I'm definitely not. I have not fallen in love with yoga yet. But yeah, I could see you as a serious yoga practitioner. Yeah. What was it about the Dead that made you fall in love with the Dead?
It was the atmosphere. I got taken up by a friend of mine up to Alpine Valley for my first show. in June of 1986. And what's funny is the night before, locally, me and a buddy were at a party, and we were always getting into it. And we got into a big fight. And he's like, I'm not going on with you guys. And he took off, and he had a bong in a little backpack. And me and my other buddy drove off. And we're like, we need to go back and get him. Went back to get him, and there he is, a cop car. Backpack's on the top of the car, bong next to it. And we're like, oh, shit, Neil's fucked. And so we didn't know what to do. We drove off. Apparently Neil then took off. He ran, even though they knew who he was. The whole town knew his family, especially the police. And we ended up getting pulled over by the cops ourselves. My buddy got his one-hitter taken. Anyhow, it kept us out till like 2 a.m. When I got home, my dad was flaming because I was 17. I was still a senior in high school. And he's like, you're not going to that thing tomorrow. And my uncle was visiting from Ireland, so he was sharing my bedroom. And when my dad went to bed, he's like, you're not handling this right at all. Or I should say, you're not handling this right at all. You know, it is. I would say, you need to be kind to your father. You need to go up and apologize to him, and maybe he'll let you go. And so, sure enough, I went and apologized. He let me go. My buddy picked me up at 6 a.m. in his green van with a canoe on top. We went up there, and it never looked back. When Bill says I had arrived, when I was at the top of Alpine Valley, I had arrived. It was the whole thing. And then during the show, I don't remember a lot of the first set, like the songs they played, but during the second set, it was a very strange set. They did Playing in the Band, Uncle John's Band, and the drums. It's only a 2-song first part of the second set. And I'll never forget being behind those huge speakers, or right underneath them. And the goddamn do I declare, have you seen the light? And I was like, I see it. It was like John Belushi. I see the light. Yeah. And anybody next to me is like, what light? I'm like, I can see the light. And from that point, I bought a ticket for the next show. Never missed an Alpine show. Didn't miss many Midwest shows. And then later, when you started seeing them, they weren't allowed at Alpine anymore. I'd always catch Deer Creek, and I would catch Soldier Field. And the occasional, Pine Knob, or what's the other place? Thornville. They call it Legend Valley now. But and what's funny about that show is the Violent Femmes opened up.
For the Dead?
For the Dead.
That's amazing. That's like the greatest show I could imagine seeing in my life.
It was insane. No one believed it as we're all in the, the cow line, moo, to get into the place. People are like, Violent Femmes are opening up. Like, you're so full of shit. And
How
sure
was
enough,
Violent Femmes?
They were outstanding. They didn't do anything different than they would for their own show. But to see there's like 80,000 people at this place. There's no seats. There's no pavilion. It's all general admission. It was a really cool place to see a show. And the Femmes were awesome. Awesome.
Yeah, that's amazing. Where did you grow up? Did you grow up in the city or in the suburbs?
In the suburbs. I grew up in Park Ridge. It's a suburb right outside of O'Hare. It's pretty affluent, but it's right on the edge of Chicago. So it's got a little bit of a hard edge. It's not your Wilmettes or your Kensington, Kenilworth, Wilmington, not Wilmington, Winnetka. It's not those places, but it's close. Main South is the high school.
Is that your baby?
Well, my second, we didn't bring it up, is I remarried, and I have twin 4-year-old boys.
Wow.
And they're being very good, but trying to keep them quiet.
They're almost very good.
Right, exactly. They're almost
very good. What are their names?
Quinn and Aiden. We call them
Nice.
Q&A.
Q&A. That's better than TNA. That's good. Q&A
Much
is
better.
good.
Yeah, that would set off some wrong
No, I
first
shouldn't even. I don't even.
impressions.
My brain is not a healthy place sometimes. So when you're in your 20s, you know, and you're seemingly successful, right?
Yeah.
You're working, and you get to do what you want. Where does alcoholism start to show itself? Like, when are you like, I have a fucking problem?
Well, it ends up happening is that I'm drinking all the time. I fell into a job. I was working at a mail room at Wilson Sporting Goods. So it was like the main headquarters for Wilson. And I worked in the mailroom, hated it, making like 12 grand. My mom had a friend hiring someone to be an assistant to his assistant, and he was head of compliance and operations for this small little investment firm. And I'm begging her, give me the job. She's like, no way. This is my friend. I play racquetball with him. I get you the job. You're going to start calling in sick. You're going to go follow that band around, blah, blah, blah. So I was already, drinking daily, calling in sick. But then I got this job, and I really liked it. He asked me what I wanted to do. I said I kind of wanted to go back to school because I had failed out at Illinois State University twice. I was such a sweet talker. I got him to let me back in again.
Your uncle's lessons, like
Yeah,
manipulation 101.
101 without a doubt. Tim's such a nice guy. He needs another chance. Give him another chance. And then I'd blow it again. I was doing a bunch of night schools and stuff too. But this guy said, what do you want to do? I said, I'd like to go back to school, or I'd like to follow this band around while making money. And he's like, well, let's keep it to ourselves, see if you like it. Within 6 months or 3 months, his assistant was promoted to the trading desk, bond trading, and I became his assistant. 9 months in, he retired, and I became the head. Not the head. They hired a head of operations. And this woman, where you say I could sell ice to an Eskimo, she couldn't sell a heater to an Eskimo. She was repellent. People just couldn't deal with her. And I'd been there 9 months. I'm 20 years old, about 21. And people started coming around to me to get things done. And I learned a lot about office politics. And went through my first merger about a year and a half in. And that's when I started freaking out about not having a degree. Made it through the merger, went through another, freaked out again. And by this time, I was with my first wife. And she's like, you got to go back to school. I'm not dealing with you freaking out about losing your job because you don't have a college degree. So I went back to school. I brought all my transcripts and I brought them to DePaul, which ironically, I live across the street from now. And I said, here's all my stuff. Where am I? And they said, you're a second semester freshman. And I went to school at night, and my wife was pregnant, and it took me 8 years. But I graduated in 8 years at night, and my kids got to watch me walk across the stage. But of those 8 years, 6 were my final years of drinking. And I would go down in the basement, drink a case of beer, smoke a quarter of weed, and write papers. Wouldn't even remember what I wrote. And then my wife would edit them. And I'd hand them in, and I ended up with straight A's. And so, I was.
Do you think it was your writing or your wife's editing?
I think a good combo, but her editing was darn good. And it's like, so there was that. Everything formed into it. I went to work drunk. I did liquid lunches. I went to a different place for lunch every day so I wasn't known as the drunk. So to answer your question, the seed was planted and it just grew while this stuff was growing too.
If we were going to look back at 26 to 33, how often were you like, this is a fucking problem? Or was it just that kind of car accident, kids, culmination of like, holy shit, like realization? Before that, were there moments where you're like, this might not be working out?
Oh, there was definite. 26 to 33 were the worst. I always talk about the first 10 years was a lot of fun with definite occasions of ugliness. Next 5 years, the ugliness started to show. The last 5 years, it was just plain ugly with a little light occasionally. Like, I don't know if you remember, they did a thing called Terrapin Station up at Alpine Valley in 2002, August of 2002. And it was one of the first time the Core 4 played. And it was a fest. So Bobby and Rat Dog played one day. Phil and the Q played another day. Both days, what they called themselves was the other ones at the time.
Yeah,
and then on the side stage was like Randolph, Robert Randolph, Disco Biscuits. I had one of the best times of my life. I took shrooms. First time I had done psychedelics in probably 5 or 6 years, and had the time of my life. And 1.5 months later, I'm in my bottom. So from 26 to 33 was just many occasions where, I mean, those are the years my kids were born. I threw my wife down the stairs drunk. Tim is not a good guy. I held her down and spit in her face. When she was threatening to take a whole bunch of pills, commit suicide, I was handing them to her. You know, I was not a very nice man when I was drinking. I got
when you were drinking, it's important that you say that part.
Yes, when I was drinking, I got very fed up, and I wasn't always that way. Mostly towards Julie, not towards other people. People kept giving. I was the guy who broke everybody's heart. I could take down a 60-person party single-handedly and be invited back the next week.
What do you mean take it down?
Walk in, throw up on people, start fights, spill. My nickname was Spilliest T Ocean. I spilled everything, you know, instigate stuff. The party ended up not being fun after a while when I showed up.
But then the powers of the Irish manipulator made them fall in love with you before you left.
Bingo.
Right.
The Irish spin doctor. That was it, man.
Wow. I can imagine it. I can imagine it. And then you discover AA and 12 steps, and like how I understand, like the hug was a magical hug. How long did it take for you to be like, I understand this, or I want to do this, or I'm in this?
Let's see if I can say this quickly. 90 days.
You don't need to say. You don't need to say it quickly.
Well, 90 days in, I'm a 90 and 90 guy. I'm like 120 and 90 guy. I loved AA. First time I took a drink, I loved the way it tasted. I wanted more. First time I smoked weed, I loved the effect. I wanted more. First time I did acid, that was, I loved it. I wanted more. My addiction worked for me. When I got hugged by Dolores, I loved it and I wanted more. And I went back. And I went back on Thursday. And I went back on Friday. And I went back on Saturday. And they gave me this little book. And it had all these meetings. And on Sunday, I didn't see anything. So on Monday, I went back to the place I'd been going. And I'm like, hey, what do you guys do on Sundays? It's like, we go to meetings. I'm like, but there's no meetings in the book. Do you go to church or something? And they pull the book. They're like, Tim, Sunday's at the beginning of the book. Saturday's at the end. And they're like, some are sicker than others.
Yep.
But about 90 days in, I don't want to hear about the God shit. Don't want to hear about the 3rd or 11th step. But you got a lot of free time on your hands. And I took up guitar lessons because I'd always wanted to do it. In Old Town School of Folk is a real famous place in Chicago. It's in the city. And so I had to drive there. And I was going and I was going to be late. I had a box of dead tapes. I wanted an acoustic Grateful Dead tape, half labeled, half iron. Only a couple acoustics. And I'm searching. Can't find it. Just grab a random tape, run out to my car, start backing up, throw the tape in. It's an acoustic Grateful Dead tape. And I say, thank you, God. And I should mention, I was raised Catholic. the altar boy. And when I was in 7th grade, I had a little brother I'm the oldest of 4 boys. When my brother, who was number 3, was in 2nd grade, he died of a brain tumor. And no parent should be bearing 2 of their children to cancer, but that's what's happening in our case. Because we're on the last days. If we tried to do this a month from now, I don't think I'll be here. And I'm okay with it. We could talk about that later. But anyhow, I start driving, and the Grateful Dead tape comes on, and I go, thank you, God. And I drive a little further to this intersection that has a train station in it. It's Irving Park Road and Wooddale Road. And the light turns yellow. I don't stop at yellows. But at some point, for some reason, I stop. I'm the first car. And the very first car going the opposite direction is a Wooddale police car. Now, I don't know if I would have been pulled over, but I am still 90 days from my accident. I'm driving on tickets. Nothing is resolved. I'm in trouble if I get pulled over. But I stayed, didn't pull over. We go another mile down, and now this is a real infamous intersection. It's York Road and Irving Park Road. Freight train stop. And if you get stopped there, you're there for hours. You're screwed. There's no guitar lessons for me today. And I'm still a selfish son of a bitch. So I'm flying. Light turns yellow. I stop. Don't know why. To this day, I still haven't stopped. First car going the opposite direction. Bensonville cop. And I say, thank you, God. And this is that moment that answers your question. In the next second, I realized 33 years of being a Catholic, the altar boy. I won a thing in 8th grade, voted by my fellow students at the Frank Scott Award, the most Christian example. I mean, I walked on water, for Christ's sake. This was voted by my fellow students, and I was the first one in the history of the school to be on every ballot. Every student voted for 3 kids. And I say that, well, partly to show you how cool I am.
Very cool.
Because who doesn't want to be the Frank Scott Award winner? But to say, I had popularity. I had friends. I wasn't this lonely guy. I was 4'9" and 80 pounds as a freshman in high school. Even as a sophomore. I didn't grow till I was a junior. But I had friends. It wasn't a lack of. The booze wasn't replacing something. It was finding something. So anyhow, I'm like, 33 years of this. And in a matter of 7 minutes, I have thanked God for a Grateful Dead tape and 2 yellow lights. And the very next second, like for 20 years, I have woken up every morning thinking about booze. Can I drink today? Well, I only smoke weed today and not drink. Well, I only drink, not smoke weed. Do I got money on so I can I do a liquid lunch? Is my boss taking a long lunch so I can take a long lunch? Is my wife going to be home tonight, or can I sneak booze in the house? That hamster never stops. And it starts before my foot hits the ground. I'm in bed and that hamster's running. And I thought, for 20 years this has been going on, and I'm sitting here at this yellow light, because it happened in like that, this thought process. And the hamster's gone. And I have no idea where it went. And that's when I realized Dolores' hug didn't take it from me. Michael, the real alcoholic, who as soon as someone new was in the room, would say, but what about the real alcoholic? And he'd read that chapter. There was Steve, the lawyer, who got his alcoholism, who furnished his alcoholism in Saudi Arabia. There was the Tracys. There was Linnell, who used to scare the shit out of me, who says, I go to therapy to whine. I go to AA to get better.
I love those. I love it's not a hotel. We don't check in at a meeting.
Right. I love that.
Yeah. We don't check in. It's not a hotel. And we don't take what we need and leave the rest. It's not a cafeteria.
It's
we
not
come and we fucking do it.
Right.
And when I'm listening to you talk about I mean, I want to hear more about how you kind of found your spirituality
But that
because
was it. That was when I realized it was bigger than the people. It was something bigger. Took it out. And that was really the introduction to my higher power, who I always felt was Neil. And I always felt was there, Neil, my little brother. But I never introduced myself fully. And a friend of mine describes their higher power as their best friend. And I think that's beautiful because when you meet your best friend, you might become my best friend. We have a short time to work with here, Dave. But it can be done. But I don't know that when I meet you. But our relationship builds. And I love that about my higher power. My relationship never stops building, and he becomes my best friend. He, she, it, whatever.
Was that unexpected though? Like
Completely. I was, because I said I was raised Catholic. I believed in it. These last 22 years, it's completely changed. If we get a chance sometime, I'd like to describe my 11th step at some point during this, because I think it's very poignant. But
tell us now. This is a great time.
Okay, well, I have this analogy, and I won't go through the whole thing, that describes the steps. But the real thing is, it's
maybe go through the whole thing. Why not?
Okay, it'll take about 10 minutes.
That's okay. I mean, do you have to jump off the phone?
No, as long as we're out of here by around, and it's 9:39 my time.
Right.
So as long as I'm out of here by 11:30.
Oh no, we're totally cool.
Long before that.
Yeah.
So the way I look at it is, if you're in an AA meeting, you got a problem. Quit fighting it. Quit fighting step one. You'll learn more about it, but that's it. If you've been to a second meeting, quit fighting step two, because you saw something at that first meeting that came to believe that there was something at the first meeting. So you went back. And if you have taken just one suggestion, which is come back to this meeting to read this big book, to give me a phone call. You're taking one suggestion. That suggestion is coming from somebody who is listening to their higher power and is not speaking out of self-will. They're speaking out of God's will to say, let's help this person out. You're now you're already working on step 3. Hey, Aim, can you plug me in? Because I'm going to die on this. Sorry.
She loves to hear you say that.
Yeah, my God, did you hear?
Yeah.
When using the word die is the worst word. I'm dying here.
My phone's dying. I'm dying.
Yeah, my phone's dying.
I'm gonna kill you. This is gonna kill me. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a lot of material.
So anyhow, no, thank you. Actually, I do. Step 1, 2, and 3. That's my 1, 2, and 3. And for me, my brain, my head is like a hoarder's nest, and that's where the analogy comes from. And if you take this head as a hoarder's nest, it's a house that a hoarder lives in. When you first come in, that building, paint's chipping, fence is broken, grass isn't cut, broken stuff on the porch. And all of a sudden you start going to a meeting. You start going to these meetings because you went to 1, now you got a problem. You went to 2 because you liked something at that first one. So we're hoarder's nest, and now this house is a wreck. Well, you start going to meetings, you find something in meetings you like, you start taking suggestions. Next thing you know, the redness is out of your eyes, you're not so bloated, you might have some money in your pocket. Going to the analogy, you fix that fence, you cut the lawn, you painted the building. It looks really nice from the outside. But every curtain is drawn. No one's seeing inside that house. And at the meetings, they say, get yourself a sponsor. Not everybody's like me, but I'm a people person, people pleaser. And I'm like, okay, I'll get a sponsor, in name only, of course. And if it's a good sponsor, he walks up to that house and he starts knocking on that door saying, hey, let me in. And I'm like, I'm not letting him into here. I'm not letting him see what's in there. But eventually I open the door and I'm mortified. Like he's looking around and he's checking out this place, this wreck. And I'm like, well, what do we do? He goes, oh man, my house, it used to look just like this. We clean it up one room at a time. And so we do. But if you're anything like me, all the porn, the dead bodies, the ugliness gets shoved in one closet. And that closet holds everything. And so you got this beautiful, clean house. But in that one closet is all the garbage. And anytime anyone comes over, you're just petrified they're going to stumble upon the closet. So eventually, you have to come clean and even clean that closet. And that's the 4th step. Working those steps, working that 4th step, you're cleaning that house. Now the 5th step is doing it with that other sponsor. So now you've cleaned your house. Well, 6 and 7, you discover why your house is a mess. You know, my house is a pigsty because I don't do the dishes.
Because I'm a pig.
Because I'm a pig.
Yeah.
I don't put my clothes away. I don't mop the floor. Garbage is piling up. All this shit's going around. In my real life, I'm still lying. Maybe not saying, no, I didn't spend money at the bar, or no, I'm at work, I'm not at the bar. Those lies have stopped. But the doing things for dishonest reasons, I was the king manipulator. You know, I haven't drank in 9 months to my wife. You should be doing this for me. That's not honesty. That's manipulation. And I was just as dishonest then. Self-righteous. I was on my pedestal. I was judgmental because she still drank and used. You know, all those things that made my house a mess. If I just pick them up and start doing them again, my house is going to look like that hoarder's nest again in no time. So I have to do those things on a daily basis. And that's 6 and 7. 8 and 9 end up being that hole in the wall where you walk past it and destroy it. Just punched a hole in the wall. Or the furniture you absolutely wrecked. Or the window you smashed. And never cleaned up. Every time you walk past it, you're filled with shame. And so you go and you start to mend it. You clean it. You get some drywall. You clean that wall. Now, it might not fix that problem outside, but when you walk past that hole in the wall, it's no longer a hole, and it's been fixed with your loving hands, you feel a sense of, I don't know if pride's the right word, but you don't feel that shame.
Self-esteem.
The self-esteem, that's a better word. You don't feel the shame. The furniture is brand new. The window is new and you can look through it. That's 9 and 10, or 8 and 9. 10, doing this on a daily basis. I'll get to 11 last. 12 is when, you know, what happens is everything's going okay and an elephant walks into your house and takes a big old shit in the living room. And then what do? I go down to the basement, pull out the Xbox, and hide from the shit. The shit is a divorce. The shit is a son with addiction. Shit is cancer. You know, and I don't want to deal with it. So eventually, if I'm well connected, and that's the key, get connected to this program. Get in the middle. Don't sit on the edge. If you're in the middle, people will be like, where's Tim? You start getting the phone calls. What you doing? Hanging out in the basement. Why are you hanging out in the basement? Well, there's a pile of elephant shit up in the living room. Are you cleaning it up? No, I'm just leaving it there. Well, let me know when you want to clean it up, and I'll help you. You know, and eventually that stink starts to come down to the basement, and you go upstairs, and with some help, you clean up that stink, and you're on to the new thing. And then the rest of the 12th step, the most amazing thing is when someone says, hey, I got a pretty hoarder house. Do you think you could come by and help me clean it up? That's the key. That's the goal of AA. That's what makes AA go around. But the 11th step for me, coming up on 22 years, is what this program is all about. I talked a little bit about my higher power is my best friend. Well, the 11th step is like that beautiful, in this house that I have a beautiful tree, maybe a weeping willow or a beautiful oak tree that just gives me comfort. And it's in my backyard. And every time I look at it, I feel peace. And so I built a bench. And I put a bench in my backyard so I could sit on the bench and I can look at this tree. And then I love the sound of a gurgling brook. So I get one of those little fountains and I put it next to the bench. So you got that gurgling brook while I'm sitting on the bench looking at the tree that gives me peace. But now I don't want to get rained on, so I build a gazebo over the bench and the gurgling brook so I could sit on the bench and look at the tree and feel the peace that I feel when I feel that tree in my life. Then I live in Chicago, and it gets pretty fucking cold there, so I winterize the gazebo. So now this gazebo is all winterized, so I can sit inside, nice and toasty, next to the gazebo, inside the gazebo, next to the gurgling brook, sitting on this bench, looking at the window, out at the tree that gives me comfort. Then I start listening to more and more people in the rooms that talk about this is what they do for their 11th step. This is their connection to their higher power. These are the books they read. This is the music they listen to. This is the art that they appreciate. And I begin to fill this whole gazebo with books and music and art so that I can sit and listen and read and watch as I sit on that bench next to the gurgling brook, looking out the window at this beautiful tree that was the beginning of my love for something beautiful. And it just grows and grows and grows. It's like I was brought into this world Catholic, my parents' choice. And I feel I was given this coloring book. And the coloring book is not colored at all, just pictures in it. And because I don't take care of things, I got that little 8-pack of crayons, and it's little nubs, papers ripped off, barely anything left. But then all of a sudden, I'm coming to these rooms, and I hear more and more from you. And all of a sudden, I got this beautiful 64-pack with the pencil sharpener on the front. And it's the one the rich kids had, because while I lived in an affluent neighborhood, my parents were two people off the boat from Ireland, raising 4 children on 2 jobs, sending them to a Catholic high school. We didn't have money. I was a Toughskins and Keds kid. I was not a Nike and Guess kid. And I got, all of a sudden now I got this 64-pack, and I'm using it to color this crayon, color this color book. And this book becomes the most majestic, beautifully colored book of my life. It just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's the way I look at my spirituality in my 11th step.
Are you saying you have a winterized gazebo in your backyard full of books and art?
I
Is that
don't.
what you're telling me?
It's the fully books of art and music and books are all in the winterized house.
Right.
I don't have any grass. We're in the city. Property is at a minimum.
But it's about having the temple devoted to the beauty and love and things that give back. And I love the way you took us through the 12 steps. I really, really, I love that. And I appreciate it. And what do you ever tell somebody because one thing I'm always interested in is to become spiritual. You know what I mean? Like from not being spiritual for whatever reason, I'm resistant to even saying I'm spiritual when I'm definitely spiritual at this point.
You without a doubt are, from what I've heard.
But I have a hard time voicing it for some reason. I have some weird intrinsic, I don't know what it is. I call it shame. I call it trauma. I don't know what it is that I don't feel comfortable saying I'm spiritual. I remember when I was, I don't know, in college or something, I worked on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. I had an internship, and it was 1995. It was the summer that Jerry died, and I would walk all the way. And I grew up in Chelsea on the kind of the lower West Side, and I would walk through Central Park, and in the middle of Central Park, there's this thing called Sheep's Meadow, and that's where all the hippies go, and like everybody's got good bud, and there's all these weirdos, and there's hacky sack, and there's frisbee, and I remember there was some lady there. This black lady who sold spiritual texts. She had the Bhagavad Gita and the Upanishads and some fucking Buddhist shit and Taoist shit and, probably some Christian or Jewish stuff too. Maybe not. Who knows? And her name, I remember it very well because I thought she was so cool. Her name was Siharaki. And I was like a little hippie, acidy kind of kid at the time. And she described herself as a spiritual woman in love. and that was her understanding of, and she was deeply spiritual, and she probably
Yeah.
knew every, ideology pretty well. And I remember thinking then that that's what I wanted to be, not necessarily a woman, but a spiritual person in love. And when I hear your 11th step, it makes me think of that lady.
Oh, what a compliment.
You know what I mean? But so what do you say to somebody who it's hard for them to find it?
Yeah, I think willingness, like we know, is such a huge part in AA. It's the willingness to be vulnerable. In my case, it's kind of hard to answer that question because, and I think a lot has to do with being 4'9" and 80 pounds when you're entering high school. You learn to use your mouth. And as you can tell, I'm a talker, always have been. And I'm Irish. I'm a storyteller. I love to tell stories. I really don't exaggerate. And that's what's kind of crazy. If you're around me long enough, you're like, God, some of these stories cannot be true. But they are. I fell off a roof dressed like a leprechaun on my 21st birthday and broke my back. I fell down a waterfall with no life jacket and completely fell out of the raft and went down the waterfall by myself. Fell into fires that had been burning for 4 days. Like, I fell a lot. I don't fall so much anymore. Although recently I have started falling again, which is sad. But everything comes full circle.
Yeah.
But I am a little different in that fact. But if I could give advice to people, and that's what I say, and I'm very renowned for being in a newcomer's face in a kind, gentle, and funny way. And that's actually how I met Amy, which I did not 13th step. We went on our first date when she had 17 months, but I met her when she had 30 days. And she had just got back from, we were at a meeting. I'd never met her before. And he said, anybody celebrating a day count? And she said, well, I had 30 days last week, but I was in Budapest. And but when I was there, I got a coin. When it came to me, I'm like, yo, Budapest Amy, you got to share that fucking story. That's going to any length. 30 days, another country, they don't even speak the language, and you're tracking down a coin? I'm like, you share that story. And sure enough, every time I saw her, no attraction, no hitting on her. I don't even register what she really looked like. I would say, hey, Budapest Amy, are you sharing that story? And then all of a sudden, 3 months in, she disappears. And I was like, she went out, something. And because, of course, we're the morbid thinkers. Can't be that she changed jobs or something. And it's about now 7 months later, I'm doing some volunteer work at Hazelden, and I come out, and this couple of kids, younger people. Amy's 17 years younger than me. They're out having a cigarette. And this girl bounces over me, gives me this huge hug, and she's like, Tim, oh my God, how are you? And I'm like, I know everybody. Ego Tim. So I'm like, oh yeah, how's it going? About 2 minutes in the conversation, I'm like, Budapest Amy? She's like, you didn't realize it was me? I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, and now the attraction kicked. I'm like, holy shit, you look phenomenal. And I don't mean it like you're hot. I'm like, you have grown into your sobriety. You're glowing. And, that led into a friendship that continued to grow where she asked me to give a lead someplace and I didn't show up because my son had gotten his second DUI in 5 days with possession of Xanax. And I didn't have her phone number, so I didn't show up. But that's how we exchanged number. And a couple months later, we're at a meeting and I knew that her anniversary was coming up. And so I got her a coin. And when I gave her the coin, she started crying. And I'm like, why are you crying? And she's like, you got to see this. She pulls out the coin. I had never seen the coin she got in Budapest. Exact same coin. And there's a lot of coins. It's a picture. It's the one with Bill and Bob. It's maroon. They're both maroon. One has a 1 for a year. One has 1 for a month. Serenity prayer on the back. It's the exact same coin, except one was a 30-day, one was a 1 year. And that's when things got a little closer. And I think we started crossing a line because then she had a year. And then over the next, 4 or 5 months, our friendship really got tight. And then I had I worked for a huge company that had these like superstar parties. And Richard Driehaus is our owner. The Beach Boys have played. Diana Ross has played. Jay Leno, Martin Short. It's like this big, off the charts. I have no business being at these 1,000 people affairs, but they're amazing. But it's a tough date if you're not dating someone. So I asked her to come purely as friends. I don't want to ruin this relationship. She's
Did you
a lot
say that?
younger. I did. I said, just as friends, you're a friend. It's a 2-hour drive to it. It's a 6-hour party. It'd be nice to have someone I'm comfortable with and really enjoy it. And she said, let me check and I'll get back to you tonight. She called me that night and she said, yeah, she's like, I'll go with you, but I'm wearing my prom dress. And I said something like, well, that's fine with me, and I'll wear my prom tux. And just so you know, I'm not that old that I was wearing a blue powder puff cummerbund. I'm wearing a black slick, tux in 1986. And she's like, well, speaking of, how old is Tim Kelly? And I said, well, Tim Kelly is 46 years old. And she's like, I call bullshit. Mama Kelly doesn't know how to count. There's no way you're 46 years old. And I said, well, how old is Amy Drucker? And she says, well, Amy Drucker is 29 years old. I'm like, there is no way someone that young is this put together. But that's when we realized we were 17 years apart. And that's when we came to address that. And 1 week later, we're talking about marriage. We're talking about children, because I had an issue. We had our first 2 children with no problem. But then I got really sick at some point and basically had like a natural vasectomy. So if we were going to have kids, I had to do IVF. And I'm 46. And what I told her is, if you want kids, I do it. But if you don't, I am perfectly fine. But that was 1 week, because really for 17 months, I fell in love with this woman in the most sacred, safe, honest places in the world. Honest if you're being honest. But it really, how better fall in love than in an AA room when you have 2 sober, not 2 kids meet on campus, 2 sober with some time. One guy with about, 14, 15 years, the other one with 17 months, both working really good programs, both sponsored, both sponsoring. And I fell in love with her. We didn't have to deal with all that bullshit. We went straight to it. We were engaged within a year, married within 2, and then having kids within 4.
I still call it a 13th step.
Yeah, it's okay. You're not alone.
I'm just playing. Listen, I think I wanted to start a dating app called the 13th Step, where for sober people, where the only requirement for membership was the desire to stop drinking.
That is outstanding.
That's beautiful. I'm just fucking with you. It's beautiful, and like when things like that work out, regardless of age, regardless of program, like just because you have a good program doesn't mean you're going to have a good marriage.
No,
things can go wrong. We're just people.
Absolutely. I got divorced in program.
Exactly. But I love that story. It's very beautiful. And obviously, like, here you are, dying, and it's terrifying. It's got to be terrifying. And Amy's right with you, and you have these 4-year-old kids.
I'll tell you, David, it's not fully terrifying. I'm really kind of ready. What's the biggest thing is it's sad. It's tragic. Because again, I'll talk my ego. I have an ego the size of Texas at times. I'm going to leave a hole in a lot of people's lives. My closest friends and family, especially. But LPAC, the Lincoln Park Illinois Club, is not going to be the same without me walking into it on a regular basis. These meetings that I attend, the people that I deal with, non-AA people, my work has not made me take short-term disability. I'm working right now, getting fully paid way too much for doing absolutely nothing. And it's because my team of 9 is so good and they are so awesome at what they do and support me. And my boss, who's the president, and the CFO, who's my other boss, completely trust me. I'm going to leave a hole in Olive Treehouse, 80 people firm. I'm going to leave a hole in that. And so that's what's hurting me. As far as being terrified, I'm kind of excited. It's like, bring on the night. I know my brother Neil on February 4th, 1981, died of cancer. He was never, ever less strong. That was his weakest day, I think. Today, he is stronger than he ever has been. He is so present in my life. And that's what I'm going to be in people's life. I'm just going to get stronger. But I'm excited for what's coming next. I'm a little tentative, but what's the worst that's going to happen? Nothing happens and I know nothing better. I really choose to believe it's going to be something beyond my wildest dreams and incomprehensible. And I know I'm going to be around and I'm going to fuck with you. I'm going to be on one of your podcasts and you're going to go, oh, that was Tim.
That was Tim.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate everything you're saying. And I mean, I don't know if you know about our show, but our show, I started it with a friend of mine who died.
Yes.
And we've lost so many people along the way, you know, very involved with the show. And then a lot of people who maybe had listened once or maybe were involved with somebody who was a super fan of the show or whatever. There's around addiction and recovery, there's a lot of death and you're dying and we're all dying, right? We're all dying. I mean, I say that every day. Like the only truth about living is that it stops at some point, and that's the craziest thing about living is that it ends.
My friend died of a massive heart attack last week, Monday. He didn't get the chance that I've had in these last 4 years to say my goodbyes, to come to terms with it. I think I'd be a lot more scared, but instead I've been able to have this time. I'm blessed, you know, with the whole why me. Why not me? I've won. Man, shit, if we're playing the game of life, I'm over by that white mansion. I'm done spinning. I'm counting my cash, counting the pegs. You guys are still trying to figure out what profession you're going to get into. So why not me? In 55 years, I have lived the life of Riley. You know, do I want more? Yeah, I'm a fucking addict. I want more. But do I need more? I watched my son get sober. I watched him get sober.
And every day is more right now. You know, today is fucking Tim Fest, for Christ's sake.
That's right.
But when you found out, like, I guess you found out you had cancer of the appendix and they said it was treatable. And how scary was that?
That was scary because it's like, holy shit, this is happening to me. And then when we went back and we were told it was stage 4, it was really scary. And we got home and we were very quiet. And I got a text from this guy, Max, who's pretty well known here in Chicago too, Russian guy. And he's like, hey, you coming on? And I was like, oh, fuck. I forgot I'd volunteered to give a lead. And I'm like, well, if I've ever had an excuse to back out, this is it. I found out 30 minutes ago I got stage 4 cancer. And I was texting him back saying, Max, it's just not a good day. And then this is where the program kicks in. It's not me. It's my higher power says, where the fuck else would you be? What are you going to do? Sit here and wallow away? Get on that fucking meeting and give a lead. And I gave a lead to 50 plus people. I knew maybe 5 of them. And to this day, it's one of the most amazing meetings. I just let off the cuff and talked about probably a lot of that fear. I'm just thinking that now. The fear that I should have had was just dispersed right there. And I talked myself into not being scared. And it was an amazing example of what this program does. You know, if you need to step up, you got to do the work. Faith without works is dead. I could have all the faith in the world that I'll get better, but if I don't, step up and give that lead, and next thing you know, I've got 50 people lifting me, 50 footprints in the sand instead of 51 carrying me. That's what happens because this program kicks in.
And you took the chance. You didn't have to do the lead that day.
No.
You weren't going to do the lead that day.
No.
But when you decide to do it, all of a sudden you discover the purpose of all of it. And it replaces the fear with, I know what I need to do this.
Exactly.
And I'm sure the fear still shows up.
It is. Yeah, I'm not stupid. It's still scary.
It's not about stupid. It's about human. You know what I mean? It's like, as a human, I was scared to go to Chicago last night. I was scared. I mean, I'm scared of most everything, but I was scared to go to Chicago. I was scared to buy a ticket. I was scared to go meet you. I was scared to go to Tim Fest. I was just scared of the whole thing. And again, like me saying I'm not a spiritual person, for some reason I bought the ticket. For some reason I said I'm doing it. And it was like, to me, it was like this crazy God thing. Because you hear people talk about that kind of thing all the time.
Sure.
Like, how did I wind up in this situation? And I was like, and that's why I was so bummed. Obviously it was God's fucking tropical storm or whatever.
Right.
But I was so bummed because I don't say never. I rarely go do something like that. I'm rarely like, okay. Like, it wasn't me saying okay, and I felt, I feel like there's a reason also why I'm not there. I think it's so that John Bucati can shine at your party on
Get
Dopey.
another, let Bucati be Bucati.
But also, like, I feel maybe if we were in person, I would have interrupted you a lot more. And this way I'm letting you talk.
After listening to Jason's interview, I'm like, I wonder how much I'll talk.
Did I talk a lot on that one?
You guys both are talking so much. Your repertoire between the two of you was phenomenal. It was awesome. Bucati too. You could tell you guys are good friends.
Oh, I mean, like I met him like randomly, and now he's one of my best friends, which is very nice.
An amazing man. I got some of his art. He sent me art that I got hanging on my wall now. He's just a phenomenal man.
Agreed. I want to talk
Jason
more
too.
about. You have to say hello for me because I don't know when I'll ever see Jason again. John, I'm going to see next week in Utah, but I want to talk more about. I want to talk about your son. Like, when your son was at his worst, does he go straight to you?
In two ways. In violent ways, and then when he's in remorse for help. Because we got into me and my wife divorced, and we had this big elaborate plan on who's going to be with who, when, and blah, blah. And it turned out that my daughter just decided to live with my wife at her house, and Lucas lived with me. So I got the raw end of the deal. And, but it was the right end because my wife and Lucas would have killed each other. Myself and Luke, we struggled. And I had no idea what Xanax addiction was like. I didn't know anything about pills. It's one thing I've never done until now for pain med. And watching that happen is watching a person in a full-blown blackout. It's absolutely petrifying. His face changes. He looks like Wolverine. It's like their face stretches out. It's gaunt. It looks terrible. And he doesn't remember anything. He's ruining my shirts because, I'm not getting into a physical altercation with him, but a wrestling altercation. It's not punches. It's more wrestling. And he hates me. He hates me because he hates my recovery. He knows since then, and he's made his amends to me. He says I knew that's where I was going to be, and you were cheating me. He goes, you didn't do it till you were 33. I was 20. He's like, you cheated me at 13 years because you forced this on me. Because I did. I took him to meetings. I eventually started going to Families Anonymous, and it taught me a lot of great things. You say it once, it's okay. You say it twice, you're nagging. You don't need to say it twice. You have a boundary and you stick by it. You can't come to my house drunk. 2 weeks later when he's coming over, you don't remind him that. If he shows up drunk, he doesn't come in the house. That's it. You don't have to say, remember now, you can't come up here drunk. That kind of stuff. You know, no is a full sentence. If I'm trying to control the wind, I'm crazy. You know, stuff like that.
But also, if you think you got him sober at 20, you're crazy. He did it. You know, he did it.
100
God did it. Whatever. You can say, "Come with me." You have to go to meetings. That doesn't mean he's going to do it.
You are 100% correct. I did nothing but live my life, and if he saw some things that interest him or disinterested in him, that was all on him. He did the work. He said, "I'm ready for help." And a quick shout out, if I can do it. Voyage in Jupiter, Florida, ran by a guy named Kevin Bandy. They do God's work, man. And it's only for 18 to 30-year-old men. It's not co-ed. They stay in this beautiful house on the intercoastal, and they do therapy Monday through Friday and half a day Saturday. Sunday, they go to meetings every day. Sunday only is a meeting. And on Wednesday and Friday, half the day is doing experiential things like swimming with the sharks or swimming with the jellyfish, swimming with Monterey's, deep sea diving, Navy SEAL training, but teaching men to act with other men, doing fun things that's not surrounded around booze. And it's a 90-day program.
I think I had somebody on recently who mentioned Kevin B in Florida.
Kevin B he's phenomenal. And Ryan is his main clinic guy. Ryan, can't think of the last initial. Ryan P. But they are, I know there's good ones. There's a lot of shitty ones, but this is a good one.
So when you see your son starting to get better, how rewarding is it for you? And where's your timeline with your illness then?
Most rewarding thing I've ever experienced in my life, even more than my own sobriety. And my diagnosis hadn't even come for came about 8 months later. So tell me there's not a God. Tell me he wasn't ready. He waited. You know, I don't know what would happen if Lucas was in the middle of his addiction right now. I don't know what would have happened. But instead, he got sober August 4th, yesterday, and I was diagnosed in October. So almost a year later.
How did he handle the news of the I can't even think of the word.
The cancer diagnosis.
The diagnosis.
The first time, he had no qualms. I'm going to beat it. That's who you are. You beat it. There's no way this is going to happen to you now. Second time around, he felt the same way, but I had to start when I'm being told by the doctors, there's no cure, we're just talking about maintaining, and we don't put timelines, but it's not going to be long. I had to start being serious. And
when you're getting serious and you know that you understand the issue or the truth, how do you explain it to him? Or is it hard for him? Like in your family, who has it been the hardest on?
It's hard to say. I'd say my wife, because she's raising 2 twin boys as well as a sick man. Lucas, it's very tough for him because he's so confident I can beat everything. My daughter Cassidy, she's the one who worries me a little more because she's younger. I really feel men need their dads in their teens and early 20s, but I feel that daughters need their dads in their late 20s and 30s when they're about to get married, you know, and it's one of the things I tell Cassie as a boyfriend. You are not to be Cassie's dad when I'm gone. You're her partner. You're her boyfriend, maybe eventual husband. You are not her father. She has plenty of father figures in her life. You do not play that role. So I get worried about her because Cassidy is a more stoic. She kind of holds things in, but then lets them out. And then, my whole family, my mom, I'll tell you a very beautiful story. My mom asked me the other day if I'm scared. And I said, no, I'm truly not. And she said, well, I'm not either, just so you know. I'm fully in acceptance. And she goes, the way I envision it, she says, me and your dad and Amy and your brothers and Amy's family and all your friends and the kids and Julie, your ex, we're all going to carry you down to the beach. And on the beach, there's going to be a sailboat. And we're going to lay you down in that sailboat. And we're going to set you off to shore. And we're all going to start waving to you. And you're going to be waving to us. And eventually you're going to come along the horizon. And you're going to go over it. And we're no longer going to be able to see you. But you're going to see another piece of land. And on that land is going to be loaded with all the people who've gone before you. Neil's going to be there. Your grandparents. All the people you've lost in this program. And they're all going to have their arms out. And they're going to be waiting to bring you into shore and embrace you and sit you down right next to them. And then we're going to sit and we're going to wait for the next people to come. And I think that's such a beautiful way of looking at it. So not even my mom is feeling that she needs comfort from me. But my ex, Julie, does. So I put her right after the kids. And I love giving her the comfort because I adore that woman. I adore her. I mean, Amy is the greatest thing to have ever happened to me. And me loving my ex-wife doesn't take anything away from that.
No, it's very beautiful, and I hope your mother is right.
Me
Now,
too.
if she is right, and there's a band playing in this land far away, who's playing what instruments in the band?
Oh, wow. Well, it would have to be Jerry. It's got to be Jerry, and on guitar, and Brent Midland. I would love.
You say Brent over Keith.
Oh yeah.
Why?
Because I was born during that era. My first shows, Keith was already gone.
How about two keyboard players?
If I could have two, I would actually throw out Jeff Tremonti with. I love Keith, but Keith had a short half-life. He was really good from 72 to 77. I think 78.
But more than really good, he was the thing. For me, I love
you.
Keith.
That's awesome.
Keith.
I love hearing that because you don't always hear that.
I love hearing Keith play Fender Rhodes, and I love hearing Keith play piano.
Piano is great. Yeah, he really is.
So who do you have on bass in your heavenly band?
It almost, it's like it's cliche, but I got to go Phil. But if
he's alive, he's not there. He's going to be here.
Oh, right. Good point. So is Reed Mathis. Can't pick him either. Who's the bassist who died? Probably maybe Woody Abbey from, is that how you pronounce? From Government Mule.
Yeah, from Allman Brothers, right?
Or Almonds, yeah. Almonds.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And who's your drummer?
Drummer would have to be Joe Russo. Oh, no, he's alive too.
He's alive.
John Bonham.
You're going with Bonham.
Over Bonham.
Okay. And listen, I hope it's all there. And I hope it's all there. And let me ask you this. This is the hard-hitting question. This is the hard-hitting dopey question. Obviously, cancer is super painful. There's so much I don't even know what's happening in your insides, but there's so much pain and they're giving you Dilaudid and you're sober. Is that a hard duality to deal with?
That was a 3-year decision. The Dilaudid wasn't so much a 3-year because I started doing Dilaudid when I was hospitalized. And when I was hospitalized, they can give me intravenous. And the problem with part of my cancer being gastric cancer is that I can't eat. I can eat very little, can swallow very little. So taking pills was tough. But what happened is in I want to say in February, March, I made the decision to go with medical marijuana. I'm not smoking it, but it's mostly tinctures, little oils under my tongue. But I'll have a mint, a gummy here and there. But I found I was so petrified. I'm like, I'm sober, I'm sober, I'm sober. I'm not getting high. It's helping my nausea. It helps my appetite. It helps my pain. I'm not like zoning out. I'm not doing, it's not that shit. It's 100% medicine. And that's where the Dilaudid and the morphine kind of help. They're like, you've been taking these for the last, 2 years. Why? What's the difference? I'm like, well, I never used to do Dilaudid. I never did morphine in the woods, so it's different for me. But it was really a great decision. And I want to say it's going to be even better in 5 to 10 years when the health field meets the legal field, because doctors are recommending it. It was my oncologist who said, you really, really, really should think about medical marijuana. And when I finally said, okay, let's fill out the paperwork, what should I get? She's like, oh, I can't recommend anything.
You're like a little silver haze, perhaps.
There was a little excitement.
Of course there was. Are you kidding? But it's also like in program, we're meant to take what a doctor suggests under a doctor's care. If it's mental health drugs, if it's anti-anxiety, like if you have an issue that isn't getting worked out with 12-step work and a professional suggests X, Y, and Z, and your sponsor is like, I agree, that could be beneficial, and you have a good experience with it, it's not going against the program.
No.
And frankly, I'm very grateful that you can be on these things, that your quality of life is at a better level than if you weren't, that you're not so stoic or white knuckling saying, no, I need to be pure or anything like that. I mean, if it was me, I'd be like, what time is my ketamine infusion? Where's the medicine man? So I would even go to have the tobacco ceremony so I could be smoking, cigarettes in it. But why not? It's these are your last days. And they should be as pain-free and free as possible, where you can feel joy and communicate and be as present as you can without this burden that obviously you have anyway.
I've been brought home last Tuesday was my final discharge from the hospital, and we are considered hospice at home. I have been surrounded by people. My son and his girlfriend, my daughter and her boyfriend have been here nonstop for, I want to say, 6 straight days, from roughly anywhere from 10 in the morning until 10 at night. And we're just sitting around laughing. Sometimes I'm sleeping, sometimes I'm not. I've had 6 of my closest friends that I've known since I was in 3rd grade, guys I've known almost 50 years, have shown up and sat by my bedside. Everybody's being so considerate that no one's staying more than an hour, maybe an hour and a half. I couldn't do that without the pain meds. And I am with you. I know when my next, like when Amy just said, are you ready for your next? That's rare that I said, I'm not sure. I usually know to the minute. It's been 60 minutes. It's been, an hour and 20. I'm ready. Because I need it. It's like I'm wearing a corset, and it's just getting tighter and tighter and tighter. And I need it. Otherwise, like, if we had to do this podcast 2 days ago, I would have had to cancel.
No,
Some days are better than others. That's why I kind of sent you that text, just to give you a heads up. I just don't know what's coming.
And I could tell, like, I mean, you can't tell what anybody's like in a text. The second that your face showed up on the screen, I was like, I know this guy. You know what I mean? I just felt like I knew you the second you turned on and I heard your voice. And I've taken a lot of your time, and I really appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure.
I wish I was there. I wish
Me
I was
too.
there. Is there
I will
anything?
tell you,
Yeah,
and this is a total offshoot. On August 24th,
I
that's my
heard.
next. Okay, that's my next goal, and I don't know if I'll make it. I made it to this. That was the key. But August 24th, you're talking 400 people. This thing's going to be outrageous, as they say in How I Met Your Mother. It's going to be legend. Wait for it, dairy, because
Right.
we're going to have bands from 12 until 8. It's my friends from growing up, friends from AA, friends from family. It's half the hospital, Illinois Masonic. There's probably going to be a good 30 people. They've all made shirts. So if you find yourself in Chicago on August 24th, you're very welcome to come.
I appreciate it. I mean, you never know. Maybe I will.
Yeah, who knows?
Is there anything you would like to say that you didn't say?
The only thing I'd say is that if you're questioning this program of AA, this fellowship, this way of life, don't. It's given me 22 years of bonus time. As our friend Ivan says, I've been playing on house money, for 22 years. I'm a dead man. It's not a bad life for a dead man. It's the worst thing I thought would ever happen to me. Every worst thing. Getting sober, my divorce, my son's addiction, even cancer with the final deal being death. Every one of those have made me a better person. And if I was not in this program, every one of those would have made me a worse person. I would have gone the other direction. I would have gone down the rabbit hole, the poor me, the life sucks. And instead, I have lived a life. Back to that game of life. I won. I have no doubt in my mind that I won this game called life. And I'm ready to take on life part 2. See what it brings.
The afterlife.
And the afterlife.
Afterlife.
The thing
They
we
should make a
call
game called
the
Afterlife.
afterlife.
They should make a game called Afterlife. Let me ask you this. This is going to be an annoying question. What about are there no moments like in this thing where you're just like, fuck, how could this happen? Like, are there none?
There is, and they mostly pertain around my wife and the twins, Quinn and Aiden, like Lucas and Cassidy. And they'll listen to this. And guys, I don't mean any lightness about our future. I'm gonna miss Cassidy getting married. I'm gonna miss Luke getting married. I'm gonna miss Luke getting his bar next year. I'm gonna miss Lucas starting his new job. I'm gonna miss grandchildren. I'm not so sorry I'm gonna miss my parents passing. I get to skip out of that. I'm glad I don't have to clean their house. That kind of stuff.
Their hoarder's nest is going to remain intact.
Exactly. It'll be up to my brothers. But when I look at Amy and I look at Quinn and Aiden, I get very sad because I want to be there. But they're not going to remember much of me, although their memories are amazing. They're not. I'm going to be this thing, and they are the most amazing. I mean, at 55, having 4-year-old twin boys, being able to do it sober, being able to do it where you're financially set, it's been a joy. And that's where I get sad. That's where I get, again, it's not fearful. It's remorse.
It's sad. I mean,
sad.
And being human, you're allowed to get sad. It's sad, but the other side is you give them all the love you can. Are you doing any weird video messaging for the future?
I've started doing that. Both my older ones have me send them voicemails because, as you know, I don't know if you know, but the kids nowadays, they don't use voicemail. They see they get a call, then they'll call you back. I don't even bother leaving voicemails. But I left them both 2-minute voicemails. I'm going to start doing some happy birthdays. I'm going to do some other things over these next few weeks that I can leave for them.
Well, that's beautiful. And what music are you listening to?
Right now, been listening to a lot of Anders, actually, because he was kind enough to send me 16 tracks that he's been working on.
Nice.
For the last year. I'm a big Sirius guy, so I listen to Jam On a lot, but I've been finding myself really enjoying, and I am putting myself out there, but the John Mayer channel, I don't know if you listen to it at all. It's channel 14 on Sirius, and it's this is John Mayer's life, and it's all over. It'll play, Killer Zeppelin tune, Killer Fleetwood Mac tune, and then he'll play the Safety Dance. It's like, it's all over the place.
Does he host it?
And he hosts it.
That's
and
nice.
He gives his thoughts on it. And it's very good. It's very good. But for the most part, listen to a lot of Grateful Dead, because it always comes back to the Grateful Dead for me.
Tim, I can't thank you enough for doing this. I'm so glad we could do it like this. You know what I mean?
Too.
And, I love you.
I love you too, Dave.
And I'm sorry, I'm not there, and I'm sorry this is happening. And I'm glad you get today. And who knows how many days you have?
Who knows?
Who knows how many days you have, for real?
We might be doing this a year from now, and you're like,
yeah, we'll do it again.
Jesus Christ, you're still kicking?
We'll do it again. But seriously, thank you so much for doing this.
I appreciate it, Dave. It's
And
been a wonderful experience.
That's good. That's a nice change of pace. If there's anything I can do at all, please let me know.
I appreciate it. I will let you know. Keep being friends with those guys. Keep Katie in line.
I try. I try very hard to keep him in line. But I love John. And the other guys I don't know that well. But you never know what's going to happen. And I went to a meeting. I went to one of those meetings. Inspiration Moved Me Brightly.
I heard you were on one once.
I was walking that same path through the park from the Upper East Side down when I was on with them. Interestingly enough,
past the sheep.
Past the sheep meadow. It was exactly there, and I think I shared right at the sheep meadow when I was in the meeting, and it was
no kidding.
And then I called John. I was like, my share was terrible. I'm so embarrassed. I shared like that in front of these legends, and he's like, you're a fucking idiot.
Exactly.
Like, you're a fucking idiot.
I agree. I repeat that.
Go, Tim. Go be with your family. I really appreciate the time. I took too much of your time, but I wanted to get as much as I could.
No, it was plenty.
Enjoy the day, okay?
I sure will. Right. And I look forward to listening to this.
Yeah, right on. Awesome. Thanks, Tim.
You take care, Dave. Thanks again.
Be in touch, okay?
Absolutely, I will.
All right, right on. Thanks, man.